Yeah, so, nice to know. Um, this little girl is essentially darting in and out between people. You know, she's like, it's not like she's running away from you or anything, like she's skipping, but she moves very quickly. And, you know, it's almost like she's hard to, to keep a tabs on. Um, so we'll just do kind of like a little bit of a series of skill checks. So as she makes her way up out of the little away from the morning roost, she crosses one of the bridges that leads to kind of underneath Neverwinter Keep. And as she passes over the bridge where the crowd gets very thick, why don't you make a perception check for me?
Hmm.
So, you know, she's kind of skipping across the bridge, and then the crowd gets very dense, and you actually gain a little ground on her because you're able to kind of like push people out of your way, you know, and manipulate a little better than she can. And she's like bumping into people's legs, and as she reaches the far side of the bridge, she turns and like looks back over her shoulder to see if you're following her, and you know, you guys kind of meet eyes again, and then she takes a hard right off through the streets. Now you can tell you're kind of
Um,
passing. You've come. Go ahead, Nuru.
because Naru's also
Yeah,
is
yeah,
still
Nuru's
following.
also following. So why don't you? I mean, go ahead and make a perception check as well, and then you can make a perception check to see if you notice somebody following you. Nice, no.
No, nice
You're
knows.
just focused, yeah.
She's
You can make it.
lasered
You
on
can
this
make it with a
kid.
disadvantage if you want. You know, like, or just if you want to totally not even try. That's
No,
fine as
no,
well.
she's not even trying.
Cool.
She shelled this kid, and she's like, you.
Yeah, and I mean, Nice Now is not hard to follow. Um,
Yeah, six foot, pale
yeah,
as. Yeah,
yeah.
she's basically a beacon.
She's
Like you could.
very stark contrast to what most of the other people, you know, even though everyone looks very different, like she still stands out above most people. Um, what is Julong doing now that she's gotten some bones in her belly?
Uh, whew, sorry about that. Uh, hmm. He's gonna go check out, maybe talk to a guard about when this meeting is.
Sure. So you find a guard, and you know, you try to get his attention. He's kind of there's a couple of guards that are kind of talking lazily between each other. They don't really look like they're too focused on their job, and you get their attention, and one of them's just like, "Oh, what do you want?" You know, like they probably been asked 100 questions today already. Um, what do you ask the guard?
Salutations. Uh, I come from the. Where is it again? What are the mountains called again? Shoot, I forgot. I should have taken.
It's like the
Land of
cloud.
birds
It's
and
like
big
it's like the cloud peaks, I think.
cloud beaks.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
I am the ambassador from the Cloud Peaks. I am not privy to where my meeting is supposed to be held, though. Care to help me?
Oh, ambassador, you say? Well, I'm the mayor of Sparkle Peaks. Make your point.
He kind of stares at the guard flatly for such a comment and repeats.
Yeah,
Where is
you get the impression like a bunch of people have announced who they are to these pair of guards today, and like they just don't give a shit.
Lovely. Now, where is the town hall?
Castle Never is that way, and he kind of points, you know, behind him in like a northwesternly direction. If you have official business, it's near the docks overlooking the city.
Pardon?
And at this point, I would suggest
I'm
taking
not
off
pooping
and
on his head!
yeah, at this point, I would suggest taking off and pooping on this guard's head.
There will be time for that later. There's so
He's
many
wearing
rooftops.
But he does.
Gotta establish your dominance.
But he does direct you
Established.
towards where like any official business today might take place, and just as he mentions that, you can feel like a kind of a light breeze tickle its way through the streets. The feathers at the ends of your wings begin to dance a little, and if you wanted to just take off from here, you could.
Sure.
So you
And
want
I'm going to make it a point to try and blow gust into their faces.
to? Nice,
for being
yeah.
mean.
You give your wings one good hard flap, and dust kicks up from the dusty streets below your feet, and you kick up a nice big cloud of dust around these guards, and they start spattering. One of them curses you as you fly up, take off, and you start flying towards the keep. Why don't you make a perception check for me? What's your passive perception?
It's like 14, I think.
So 14 would actually be good enough.
Oh, okay.
As you're heading over, you start flying towards, and you see this big keep that's kind of on this raised portion of the city. It has its own wall all around the grounds as well. And as you're kind of gliding over the streets, these three long bridges come into view, and standing a good probably foot above the rest of the crowd, crossing one of these bridges, you notice this very striking woman that seems very focused on something that you can't quite see in the crowd. And behind her, you notice this cat person kind of intently following fairly close behind.
Intriguing.
So nice, Snow. You follow this little girl across the bridge, and she makes a hard right. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, my intent is to cast light onto her outfit in order to make it easier for her to spot, since she's trying to evade me now.
What is the range of light?
Light is
Touch.
Oh, okay, so you got to catch up to her.
Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, it's touch. Never mind.
Okay.
Okay.
It's it's possible. You just have to catch up to her.
Yeah, exactly.
She's keeping a pretty solid 25 to 30 foot distance between the two of you. You gained a little ground on her, so maybe now you're kind of 20 feet away. But the crowds are still pretty difficult to move through. I would say you can make you can probably make an acrobatics check to acrobatics dexterity check to close the gap a little bit as she makes this hard right and starts heading up through what now you can very clearly notice is the noble part of the city. Rich merchants, important people live here. You notice the structures become kind of these more very defined, sprawling manors. Some of them have even their own contained little bits of farmland and animals in fences or gates or pens, and the houses become much nicer here, and everything becomes kind of much nicer here in this part of the city.
Whereabouts on the map would this be?
It would be up in this portion of the city here. So essentially, you guys have crossed this bridge right here, and the little girl has taken a hard right this way and is heading for the north gate of the city up in this direction. And so, Julong, you're kind of now flying right over this little part of the city near this bridge, and Nice Snow and Nuru, you guys are both heading across that bridge in the shadow of Neverwinter Keep. And the little girl, as she makes her hard right, you bump into this big hefty wide man, and you do that kind of thing where you bump into somebody and then you both move one way at the same time, and then you're oh, okay, no, I'll go try and go this way, and he just won't get out of your way, and she kind of gains a little ground on you. Actually, go give me a perception check again to now you're trying to balance between getting out of this guy's way and keep your eye on this girl. Ooh. And you kind of just lose sight of her. Like you finally get past the guy, and you stop at the edge of the other end of the stone bridge, and you're looking around, and the crowd's moving all around you, and there's laughter and noise and people all around, and you just don't know where she went.
And you
know the direction she went, but you don't know, like, she's just gone from your sight.
Yeah, at this point, Nice Snow is going to dash in the direction trying to find this girl.
Okay.
She's like full on sprinting.
So you start pushing your way through the crowd. People start kind of getting out of your way, and you can hear like a commotion kind of spring up. People are like, "What's going on?" And Nuru, what do you do? Do you
he's still following.
Okay.
So as Nice Snow speeds up, he's going to be speeding up.
Yeah, you're just gonna easily keep pace.
So you come to this big cross section where the road splits off into two other. It kind of forks basically, and then wraps around these two big sprawling manors. And in the little corner here, you can see there's like two competing performers essentially. There's a half-orc man who's got a big set of bagpipes, and he's like playing them very obtrusively and loud. And then across the kitty corner from him in this little square, there's a mime, and he's like trying to pull people from the crowd as they're walking by, and with like an invisible rope. Make a perception check to see if you catch sight of the girl again.
And she will like grab onto the collar and basically be like, "If it be your will, I will find him."
I was gonna say before you rolled, I was gonna say roll with advantage.
Got it.
So, as you stop, and this big half-orc's blaring on his bagpipes, and this mime is trying to grab the attention from this just god-awful noise. Your like vision focuses, and you see the girl like darting off the left path. You can actually see she kind of like ducks through this wooden fence that wraps around one of these manors, and like cuts across the big open lawn of this rich manor here in this portion of the noble side of the city. And she's like scampering through still. Like, she's not running away. She's like scampering. She has a little doll in her hand. Even with that perception check, like your focus zooms in on her, and she's like kind of like twirling the doll in her hand, and you can notice like one of its button eyes is missing, and it's like dressed in the kind of the same manner as she is.
Yeah. And Nice Snow is gonna just, now seeing her, is just gonna full on sprint at her.
So, Julong, you can, as you're gliding towards the keep, where you have some business, you notice this commotion. You see this stark-looking woman dart off through the streets. You look ahead of her, and you see the crowd part, and then your eyes fall on these two performers, and then you see this child like cutting across this big open lawn, and you see the stark woman follow after, and then kind of slinking in behind the two of them is this African cat person who is kind of casually probably twirling a knife between her fingers as he follows. I'm sorry.
He's not really like. He doesn't have his weapons out or anything, but he does like have them situated so he can pull them out.
I was just illustrating like some boredom a little bit almost,
Don't run with knives,
Yeah.
Don't run with knives.
Yeah. So what do you do, Julong? Do you keep heading towards the keep, or do you follow the people?
It's still early in the morning, isn't it?
It is, yes.
The keep can wait. This commotion is more interesting.
Gotcha.
He's gonna follow.
So as you guys make your way across the manor field, she kind of dips underneath the fence on the far side, and now there's like a clear lane. And as you're getting farther and farther away from like the portion of the city where Shieldmeet's actually taking place, the crowds are starting to thin out. You know, there's not so many people up here, and the city kind of gets a little empty as you're getting farther away from the city. Especially up here in the nobles district, where the guard is a little heavier and people are being kind of like, you know, they have streets blocked off almost in certain places where it's like they're trying to usher people through down towards where like the Shieldmeet is, or even to the outer portions of the city where little Kalimshan are. And now it's like the little girl's got nowhere to go. Like she's just heading out through the city gates, and she's clearly making her way. I would say that you still probably, like, she probably has a 25-foot speed and you have a 30-foot speed, so like eventually there's still enough distance where eventually you're just going to catch up to her.
Yeah, and as soon as I do, I will attempt to make a grapple to like pick her up, essentially.
So make an athletics acrobatics check for me. It's your choice.
Definitely.
If you're trying to like, yeah, like
yes, slippery little.
Yeah, essentially, like you actually do. You wrap your arms around her and you lift her up, and then she just like raises her arms up in the air and like slips out of your grasp, you know. And she kind of actually giggles when she lands on the ground, like you're playing almost. And then like then she essentially dashes, and she goes under the heavy arch of the north gate of the city and then makes another hard turn out of your sight.
And she actively yells out, "Little reviling!" and starts booking it back after her.
Yeah.
Wait, so where is she now on the map?
She has now made, yes, her way out of the city gates. You're kind of gliding a little ways behind Julong. Ricky, you've already made your way to the edge of the Neverwood, which now that we're out of the city, I can go actually back to the world map itself.
This is a pretty grand chase scene for this kid. Little reviling.
And so
Grand Theft Child.
Neverwinter is essentially here, and Ricky, the Bob the Halfling, led you up to the edge of the Neverwood, about a mile and a half maybe outside of town, where the edge of the Neverwood starts, and he's led you to this, you know, this it's probably, I'd say maybe 8 to 10 wagons that have kind of formed this half circle, and it's just like there's a very different vibe than what was in the city. You know, the songs that they're singing and the music they're playing is like out of ancient history. The way they form the words, like they're words you recognize, but the way that they form them is different than the way people speak now. The instruments that they have are like, there's one less string than what you would expect on like a lute, you know, and all their possessions and their trappings and everything about them seems from another time entirely. But Bob gives you a whole bottle of wine as you guys enter the camp. It's got like a faded label on the front, and you can barely make out at the bottom Red Dragon Crush, and then there starts to be like a vintage year, but then it fades away and you can't quite see what the year is. And people are talking amongst themselves, and people smile and greet you as you come into their little camp, and you just are kind of taken aback by the this odd band of travelers. And Nice Snow, you make your way through the archways of the north gates of Neverwinter, and and as soon as you step out of the city, it's like all the sound of the city fades away, and it's just the quiet of the open plain between the walls of Neverwinter and the Neverwood off in the distance, and it gets kind of quiet, and all you can really hear is like somewhere in the back of your mind, you can still hear that sound of all the people in rejoice and merriment back behind, but it seems like miles away now, just stepping a few feet outside of the city walls. And you look to your right where you saw the child go, and you look to your left, and there's nothing in sight. And then you look off towards the Neverwoods, and from a mile off, you can see this half circle of wagons just far off in the distance in this open plain before the Neverwoods. And everything else is kind of quiet. And Nuru, at this point, do you like make yourself known, or what do you do?
He's not necessarily going to try to hide, but he is going to be behind her, not really just more observing.
Sure.
I'm making his presence known, but also not hiding.
Not hiding. So you look to your left, Nice Snow. You look to your right, and you see this wagon off in the distance. That looks like they've made a legitimate camp. Like they might not be going anywhere anytime soon. They look like they have no intention of coming into the city as well. And then you sense something behind you essentially, and you turn, and leaning against the stonework of the archway out of the north gate of the city is this Tabaxi, who you saw have a conversation with a strange individual wearing the same type of clothing of this little girl you were chasing, essentially. And those two puzzle pieces kind of match, and you saw that encounter, and then you had your own encounter with these people.
You referring to me or to
Nice Snow?
else?
To Nice Snow, yeah.
Oh, okay, so you're referring to me.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a memory click between that and hear that she'll look back and see the Tabaxi and be like, well, if you're following, might as well help me catch the girl. And she continues walking forward. And she will head to the caravans.
Julong, as you just hear that short interchange, you probably land like on the arch itself as you hear this woman just say that one sentence to this Tabaxi, and like pretty instantaneously your diplomacy kicks in, and you don't necessarily know what's going on, but you can hear in the voice of the striking woman that she means some sort of business, and it doesn't necessarily mean good business. I mean, it sounds like diplomacy might be needed.
But Nuru is like kind of reflecting to say, I may have been following you, but why on earth should I help you?
Yeah, Nice Snow is gone at this point. She's heading straight to the caravans.
Oh, he would be following.
So do you guys do you prod her anymore, Nuru, as you guys are walking, or do you guys just walk in silence towards these caravans, or walking even at a quick pace, walking a mile and a half, still walking 20 minutes or so,
Like he's going to try sort of jump in front of her to sort of halt her path and say, hey. Or hey, you should probably tell me something about this. I deserve to know. Well, maybe I don't deserve to know, but
and she looks at you, and she starts speaking in a tongue that. What languages do you know?
Common and infernal.
Ah, so you actually know what she's saying. That's interesting. Ooh, I like this. Okay, so she basically says to you in infernal, it is not what it seems to be.
Then what does it seem to be?
That is for it to reveal. And she continues forward, going past you. If you try to like stop her, she'll shoulder check you on the way.
He doesn't try to stop, but his tail is flicking in annoyance. And he stalks after her.
So Julong,
Oh,
you
right,
can
me.
feel the tension, at least in this
Mhm.
striking person, and these two people begin walking this barren road kind of out towards the edge of the woods. At this point now, the sun's probably like high in the sky, like 12 noon, middle of the day. Maybe the hottest point in the day. It's starting to get pretty warm. But you can tell they have this interchange, and you can tell that there's something tense about it.
Oh, Nuru was speaking in common. Like, he was responding in common, not
Sure.
infernal.
Do you follow, or do you
Yeah. He assumes that it's some kind of weird familial exchange of some sort.
you would
Just
do you speak infernal?
I did not write that down, but there were two languages, I believe, that I didn't allot to anything, and I forgot to ask you about languages I could use.
As a diplomat, it would be your choice, essentially.
Here's a good question. As a diplomat, has your character discussed anything with devils?
Yeah. It's unlikely that you would like have a reason or a purpose to know infernal, really.
Unless
I've
you're
had dealing with tieflings.
unless you've had some
yeah.
serious dealing with tieflings.
Yeah.
Nuru grew up around tieflings.
Yeah.
Most of his friends were tieflings, let's be honest.
Yeah.
He probably stole from tieflings.
You definitely grew up around a lot of tieflings, for sure. Yeah.
But for your character, I would just say for expediency to say like hold that off for later. Just say that you didn't.
No. Question mark?
Yeah. You hear the woman say something in a language you probably don't recognize, and the other person respond in the common tongue. But there's definitely an intensity about the woman. She seems to be on some sort of a mission, and it doesn't appear to be anything is going to get in her way.
Are they still like chasing full sprinting, or
no? They're probably just they're just walking, but at a good pace, But you would have been close enough to hear most of the exchange before they started walking off towards the caravan.
Well, he's gonna glide down.
Do you glide down and like land in front of them?
No, not in front of them. Like to the side of them, so that he just kind of like lands and starts walking along with them.
And you're not trying to like hide yourself or anything?
No.
So you guys probably notice this shadow between the two of you as you're walking towards the caravans kind of appear, and then you feel a presence behind you.
Yeah, Niso is on high alert, so
on either the left or right side, but okay. Not behind, because that feels aggressive.
Well, first off, we see the shadow first, right?
I guess the shadow, like the sun's like directly above head, so like you might not even be casting much shadow, but you might hear the wings or something, but like they probably land close enough that you definitely notice something has like also.
Naru's gonna draw his dagger like as soon as he like notices something moving to his left.
Sure.
Or whatever side.
And Niso's just gonna whip her body around.
And
Like,
so
and
I don't think that I ever had you really actually describe Julong, like what he looks like and everything. So why don't you, as they turn and look at you, and one of the Tabaxi draws his dagger, why don't you just describe Julong a little bit?
Well, first, as he sees the dagger drawn, he takes a cautious step back and puts his hands up to demonstrate that his palms are empty. He is 4'6", not as tall as an Aarakocra could be, and on the heavy side, 92 pounds, I believe I wrote. He looks particularly satisfied with himself, having just eaten bones. His feathers are mostly greens, but there is a messy clump of a crest on his head that he hasn't trimmed and has just tied back in a ponytail because he's too lazy.
Nice.
He's wearing these,
I said nice.
Yeah. He wears loose clothes made of, it looks like medium thickness stuff, comfortable and not particularly expensive except for the banner hanging from his waist, which has, well, you can see the image. Presumably in the video we would be putting the image up here, but it's purple and has this fancy crest of 2 sprigs thingies of wheat on it, likely indicating that it is a religious symbol of some sort, and it is. He has these glasses hanging from his beak. They are just the glasses parts, and there is a little loop that lazily keeps them around his neck. On his head there are these 2 little owl ear crests that are a bright pink to yellow gradient with some oranges and reds in the way. Do I need to go further, or?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Upon seeing what you were, or what you are, Niso suddenly loosens up a bit, turns back around, and keeps walking.
And I apologize, Ricky, like that I'm not giving you much attention right now, but like you got there first,
You're busy drinking.
Nuru isn't going to put away his dagger, but he is going to relax his stance a bit.
Sure. Do you say anything to Julong?
Or
as Nisto is traipsing away?
And he's probably going to call over his shoulder. Well, you dropped out of nowhere now, didn't you? I guess he's like trying to.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So he just kind of like stands there for a moment, kind of like puffed up as birds do while they are surprised, before he jogs back up and says, "I suppose I did. That was rude of me. I apologize. May I ask what was going on back there in the city?"
Fuck if I know.
It's like...
There's some creepy little devil child, I suppose, and I don't know what the hell is going on with her, but there's something odd.
There was definitely something odd about the exchange between this tall woman and the child, for sure.
Oh.
The child doesn't necessarily look like a demon child. She looks like a normal, cute child.
No,
but there was something odd going on between the 2 of them.
Like, he probably noticed her face change, and he noticed that that there was a conversation going on where one half of that conversation wasn't being spoken.
Yeah.
Lips were not moving from the little gremlin's end.
There was certainly an exchange. But Nice No is
Nice Nose just keeps walking.
Got her eyes focused on her goal, um, uh, whereas she can only assume it's the only odd thing out of place, so there's nowhere really else to go at this point, and she makes her way in that direction. And as you get closer, Nice Snow, you start to hear the odd music, and and uh, and as you get closer, you notice You notice a lot more of these odd people that are dressed in a similar way um, to that little girl that you had been following. They're all wearing these kind of royal blue clothes. Some of them are maybe more of like a blood red, but they all have like intricate embroidery on their garments. And um, as you're getting closer now, there's a warm vibe about them. They are happy, and they are drinking, and they are singing these strange songs. And um, occasionally some of the words that they say like don't make any sense to you. They're even a language that you've never heard before. Um, uh, and as you're getting closer and closer, um,
Real quick, upon hearing a language that I haven't known before, I am going to ritual cast. No, wait, crap. That's right. I switched that out. Never mind. Continue.
uh, and uh, and and as you guys are approaching, it's kind of strange, this bright blue clear sky. Now, as you're getting closer to these caravans, you look out over the tree line, and it looks like there's are these dark clouds kind of rolling in, and they're coming in pretty quickly. And actually, like a heavy breeze blows through the Vistani camp. Ricky, um, the big bonfire, you're standing nearby and listening to these people interact with each other and taking in this strange history that you've never experienced through your reading and learning. The big bonfire kind of blazes up a few feet higher as this gust of wind blows through the camp, and these dark rolling clouds are spilling out over the top of the forest trees of the forest. And the sky gets a little bit darker, just kind of out of nowhere, and it keeps coming towards the city, and these storm clouds just kind of roll in from out of nowhere. And as you guys are maybe a few hundred feet out from the camp, this wind also gusts past the three of you that are coming closer. And but the camp, the wagon procession, none of the people stop their merriment. They don't even seem to notice. They continue to drink and sing, and as the fire blazes, they all even kind of cheer in unison. And they all kind of clink their bottles of wine or their glasses or whatever drinks they have. And the music even picks up a little bit. The tempo rises an octave or two. Uh, and uh, and then an old man kind of steps forward. And as you guys are getting closer and closer to the camp, um, you hear like a little boy call out, and he says, Stanmir's going to tell us a story." And a lot of the little Vistani children kind of rush in through their parents' legs and gather around the fire. They all kind of sit in front of the blazing bonfire in the center of the camp. And um, as you guys get closer and move between the wagons, um, you see. Here we go.
Hmm.
You see this old man move out through some of the celebrators in this little camp, and you even spot a little halfling that looks kind of very out of place from these other people. And this man steps forward with this kind of forked, graying beard, and he has these emerald green eyes and these big bushy white eyebrows, and His hair on the top of his head is kind of sparse. He has this colorful silk shirt on that kind of billows around him with this wine-stained colored vest. And he says, he takes a big swig. He lifts like a pouch of wine off of his belt and takes a big swig. And he, as the Vistani are kind of gathering around and the little children are all sitting around the bonfire and these dark clouds have rolled in, he says, "Yes, I'm going to tell one of our oldest stories. And even you newcomers are welcome to listen." And he actually looks up at each of you who's moved in through the wagons and turns, Nice Snow and Nuru and Julong. And he's kind of stepped up next to you, Ricky, and pats you on the head. And he fills his mouth with another swig of wine, and then he spits it into the flame of the bonfire. And the flames turn from like an orange to a green, and they dance and sway, and a dark shape appears in the bonfire. And Stanimir says, "We come from an ancient land, whose name is long forgotten, a land of kings. Our enemies forced us from our homes, and now we wander the lost roads." And the dark shape in the fire takes the form of a man being knocked from his horse, a spear piercing his side. And Stanimir continues with his tale, and he says, "One night a wounded soldier staggered into our camp and collapsed. We nursed his terrible injury and quenched his thirst with our wine, and he survived. When we asked him who he was, he wouldn't say. All he wanted was to return home. But we were deep in the land of his enemies. We took him as one of our own and followed him back to his homeland. His enemies hunted him. They said he was a prince. But we did not give him up. And when their assassins fell upon us like wolves..." And deep in the bonfire, you see the dark figures standing with swords drawn, fighting off a host of shadowy shapes. Stanimir says that this man of royal blood fought to protect us, as we protected him, and we bore him safely to his home. He thanked us, and he said, "I owe you my life. Stay as long as you wish, and leave when you choose. And know that you will always be safe here." And the figure in the dancing fire vanquishes his final foe, and then it disperses from the flames in a cloud of smoke and embers, and the bonfire crackles and sparks. And Stanimir's face becomes kind of a somber mask, and he looks at Julong, and he looks at you, Nice Snow, and he looks at you, Nuru, all of the flame of the bonfire glittering in your eyes, and he puts his hand down on your shoulder, Ricky, as you're standing beside him, and he says, "A curse has befallen our noble prince, turning him into a tyrant. We alone have the power to leave his domain. We've traveled far and wide to find heroes, such as yourselves," and he looks at you all again, "to end our dread lord's curse and put his troubled soul to rest." And you see the little girl, Nice Snow, appear next to the fire on the other side of Stanimir, beside where Ricky's standing, and she looks up at you with that sweet face again, and her mouth doesn't move, but you hear once again her little voice, "Help us." And he says, "Will you return to Barovia with us and help us end the curse on our dread lord?" And that's where we will stop our session for this week.
Oh, Nice Snow does not like it at all. Oh.
Oh.
So, welcome to the beginning of Curse of Strahd, and I'll end the recording now, and I like to just do a little at the end of the sessions, usually, especially with new players and new people new groups that I